are live again here reporting from StarEast 2022. Oh, I almost forgot the other two. We don't want to talk about that year. And now we have here another amigo that I am fortunate to finally meet again in person. This is like something that I'm getting with all the speakers today. I have, well, first of all, I am Leandro Melendez, also known as Señor Performance, your good reporter and advocate from K6, bringing all you the action and everything that is happening here at the conference. I have here with me the amigo Eran Krinsburner.
Kinsbrunner, yes.
Krinsburner. Yeah, that's a pronunciation, sorry.
It's hard, even
And-
for me.
and I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Happy to be here. Happy to meet you.
Yeah, it's both into performance, into talking similar topics, but we never actually coincided in the same location or event, even as we talk to each other here and there. But it's so good to finally meet you, man. I'm really happy.
Likewise.
And to start this conversation, I know that we are both eager and super excited to performance this, performance that. But I want to know on the Iran side, how are you feeling? How is it? How was your trip here? Or how are you feeling at StarEast? Tell us a little bit what's up
Sure.
with you.
Sure. First, thank you again for having me from one author to the other. I think for me, it's either the ninth or the 10th time at StarEast.
Oh, wow.
I haven't been physically here at StarEast in Orlando since 2019 due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
I did attend it and spoke at StarEast virtual for the past years. So I'm truly excited and happy to be face to face again in this venue. I'm looking forward to meet many practitioners from all types of, practices, performance testers, SDETs, business testers, developers, whoever is attending. I'm looking forward to meet them face to face after a long while. I'm happy that, everything is starting to open again and more events are happening face to face. I think it's the second event already in 2022 that I'm doing face to face.
Oh, wow.
It's not the last one. I already have few coming, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I'm living in Boston, so I'm happy to come to Orlando, see the sun, which is kind of rare in Boston. Happy to be here and thank you for having me.
Yeah. And it's something I just thought of. I didn't give too much introduction to you because I assume that similar to me, everyone knows who you are. But I'll give you a little time to who are you, what are you doing, and why are your fans looking at us so
So
steadily?
I hope that people who are looking are enjoying what they're seeing. As you mentioned, I'm Iran. I'm known as a chief evangelist, but basically a thought leader over 22 years in software testing and development.
Wow.
Started my career at Sun Microsystems early 2000 in the Java to mobile, Java to micro edition. It was Java for the mobile platforms. I was at Sun Microsystems for 7 years, then moved to General Electric and Texas Instruments and Neostar and so many different organizations. But most of my career, including a few registered patents, I was doing a lot in the software test automation practice. And for the past decade almost, it's a lot of years, I was working for Perfecto, which is a cloud for mobile and web testing. It got acquired 3 years ago by Perforce,
Mm-hmm.
and quite recently, Perforce also acquired BlazeMeter. So my current role is I'm the thought leader and advocate for both Perfecto and BlazeMeter under the Perforce umbrella.
It's great because you are sharing all the performance knowledge, helping people, and it's like kind of look, we have fans here. Speaking of, hello, yeah, and it's I don't know something that we share. It's a pleasure to help people, to involve them, to teach them the best practices. What can they do? Where is performance school? Where what has to be done here and there?
Yep.
And on one hand, you were involved in performance testing. How did you learn it? How did you started to get acquainted with it?
So most of my career was, around, other than few exceptions, which were, hardware and healthcare validation and testing. Most of my career was around the digital apps.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say digital apps today, it's all mobile and it's web. Okay, and all these platforms that you can consume across multiple channels. Your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, your hybrid tablet, and everything. And these devices, by nature, run on limited hardware and
Hardware.
software. And what counts the most when you are consuming a digital application is the user experience. And this is one of the top complaints that people, other than security, of course, people are mostly complaining, yeah, it takes too long for a page to load, it takes too long to complete an action. Can be transferring funds from a mobile application, doing an end-to-end transaction on my web application on this platform or a different platform, or when I'm switching from this environment to a different environment, different network conditions. Things are degraded from a user experience perspective. And this is where I started, not just looking at the functional aspect, which some would say it's obvious. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the application needs to install, needs to work. That's clear. But also the user experience. And when I talk about user experience in the context of digital apps, I talk about persona-based testing. And what do I mean by persona-based testing? I mean, you want to try and mimic as much as possible your end user, and your end user varies all the time.
Oh yeah.
If you're an healthcare provider, you have a healthcare application, right? You serve different ranges of ages, different ranges of practitioners. Can be the doctor themselves, can be the patients, can be the hospitals, can be other service providers, and each of these personas are either mobile and they are using different devices that are navigating from one place to another, or they are being impacted by other activities. Today we are living in the 5G network, right? 5G means everything is connected. Our city is smart. Our car is very smart.
The
Everything,
buildings,
the
everything.
building,
No, yeah.
yeah. So smart cities, smart networks, fast internet, right? But
Because these are at top like when you mentioned like Internet of Things, AI, that
yeah,
is we will be learning so much about in the conference. And so you started providing like services around the performance testing services and caring for the user experience
yep.
and improving it. And how was your transition into kind of advocate or helping people, and what pushed you into, because not everyone want to will talk about being authors and publish. How was it for you?
So I most of my career, I would say I would say half of my career was 100% practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
head of quality, director of quality, test automation developer, test engineer, and these kind of things. And as a practitioner, I learned so many things that I say, okay, I can't keep too much knowledge in my brain. I need to do some brain dumps. And then I started doing presentations. I offered myself I started write blog. By the way, I first started writing blogs. I created my own continuous testing.dev website. I started writing blogs, and then the organization that I worked for, Perfecto. So okay, this guy knows how to write. Maybe he knows how to speak as well. So then they asked me, okay, are you willing to do some more speaking engagements? So I started speaking and talking about that, and then I said, okay, speaking at events, writing blogs, content, publications, it's still not good enough because it's a sporadic thing. I speak this week on that item and that week on a different item. How can I consume or
Consistent,
put everything in
concise.
a aggregated way? So I started with my first book, let's say almost 5.5 years ago.
Wow.
I wrote the Digital Quality Handbook, and this book I couldn't do it all by myself, not because I'm lazy. That's
No, it's a huge endeavor as well. I know. I mean,
you know what it takes to write a book. But I decided, because I don't write the books for myself. Honestly, I'm not making money. I'm not writing books to make money. I'm writing books to
we
help the
won't get rich out
community.
of the books. We know that.
I'm trying to provide knowledge sometimes it's just from my own experience, but in many cases, in the previous books, I reached out to many smart people and practitioners. Some of them are actually going to be here at Star East, and I asked them, what is your most complex challenge that you are seeing today in the software testing world? Some of them can be around user experience and performance. Some of the things can be about AI. Some things were about specific frameworks that they were challenged with, and I started, creating my community of thought leaders where they contributed content to
Oh,
my first few books. Yeah, we did a lot of things together, but in my mind, if it's just me writing, it can be good, it can be even excellent. It wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to get more voices from practitioners like Jonathan Wright, Thomas Haver, he's actually here at the
yeah.
session, Tariq King, many Angie Jones,
Contributors, yeah.
contributed Angie Jones, and these great practitioners who are living day in and day out the software testing world. So I invited them to collaborate with me on some of my previous books, and I saw that I'm getting good reaction from the community. People are seeing values, people are learning from that, and I said, okay, why stop at one? Do another one, and then I did another one. My last book, which is actually it was just released a month ago,
Hmm.
which is quite fresh.
Congratulations.
Thank you so
It's
much.
still warm from the press.
It's yeah, the ink is still wet.
Fresh.
Yeah, fresh. The digital ink is still fresh. But this was a very different book because it was, the previous books were about a lot of challenges and topics. Of course, everything was about software testing, but this one was very, very solid and condensed just about web testing for front end developers. We always say, we talked about shift left, right? What is shift left? Allowing developers and testers to do more validations and even automated activities earlier in the software development lifecycle. So they release fast, they release with confidence, with less bugs and everything. Everyone knows the definition of shift left.
Hmm.
But if we do not enable developers and by the way also testers to do what we are expecting them to do, this shift left really doesn't happen. Or if it happens, it's
It
not
doesn't by
happening.
itself, or you need to add up the spice or the knowledge, because it's one thing that we get. I've seen often now as a dev role and trying to help now developers a little bit. Like it's not an area that I was so used to, or trying to help, or encouraging testers to get into the development world or automate with this type of tools.
Yep,
And developer development is like, okay, your tool is cool, I understand it, but why, what do I do with it? It's like
exactly.
performance, what, or what to start
Exactly.
implementing.
Exactly. And when you look at the testing manifesto, the Agile manifesto, they say few things over there, which if you do not understand them, you are misinterpreting what is
It's very
DevOps.
open to interpretation.
Yeah, because it says enable cross-team collaboration to do all testing types. I'm repeating that, all
Oh,
testing types, okay? Because when you keep asking practitioners, okay, how much tests are being automated? They say 70%, 80%. And then I ask them, okay, what is the content in this testing that you say 70%? Say, yeah, it's end-to-end, it's functional testing. Say, does it include security? Does it include performance? API,
integration, API
accessibility?
usability,
Yeah.
all this.
I say, oh no, it's just so it's not 70% because the
70% of what?
of
Because also like that
the,
100% is very difficult to.
that's the key point, the what, okay? And the what, and that's the definition of continuous testing in my mind. The what is testing the things that makes the most sense, the things that you can tie to the recent code changes that you do, okay? The developers are doing, I don't know, 7, 10, 20 pull requests a day. They touch different areas. Some of the areas are impacting security, accessibility, performance, APIs. You cannot just do end-to-end testing and say, yeah, I have a 80% test automation,
And it's
I'm
just
good.
functional, and then the web page, and that's it.
Yeah.
It-
And I think this is one of the main bottlenecks that I see today, because if you go to the famous World Quality Report and all the surveys, myself, within Perfecto, I run an annual survey called the State of Test Automation Report. And year over year, we see the same percentages and the excuses. Yeah, we don't have visibility into the test results. We don't have the skills. We don't have the tools. We don't have the resources. We don't have the time. The same excuses, if you like, year over year. And this is in my mind because of poor planning. Because at the end of the cycle, when you find out that you don't have visibility, you didn't execute all the right test cases, it goes back to the planning. It goes back
Hmm.
to the beginning of your sprint where you need to
And
scope.
now we have sprints.
Yeah.
Before there were the phases that go back to that one, like how?
It was impossible to even
Hmm?
go back and understand where is the pitfall. Now you know it's in the beginning of every sprint. It can be 3 weeks, it can be 2 weeks, it can be, let's be realistic, three
Standardish.
weeks,
Yeah.
3 weeks. So in 3 weeks you have that amount of time and capabilities to do testing, but 3 weeks are 3 weeks, and you have a given amount of resources. Let's do better planning. Let's understand what can a team of 4 testers and 2 front-end developers, I don't know,
No, a little bit
depending on the
dynamic, because as well it's not some efforts, and something that I keep pushing or promoting to, like, stop thinking as a division, like shift it as left as possible, so that you build and test and you have your feedback there, because you say 2 weeks,
Yeah.
but then we find the defects another 2 weeks to fix it and send it back. Probably didn't make it to production. We as you say, the thought process has to evolve, right?
the thought process, the planning, and I love the word feedback, because the feedback, the later you get it, and people know it, right? You get the feedback late, and to understand what the root cause is going to be very, very hard. Okay, so the feedback, and by the way, the feedback doesn't reinvent itself. Feedback needs to be, planned and designed so you can consume it. Because what is feedback? Feedback can be logs, it can be debugging information, it can be reports, can be screenshots, videos, many are artifacts. If you don't plan for feedback, okay, you will get a very, very
Or to pay attention
flaky
to it,
feedback, which you cannot do anything about it.
because it becomes just noise, or something that it's raining. Ah, cool. I'm going out. Don't you want you bring an umbrella or something?
Exactly.
No, that rain. Okay, yeah, that noise should tell me something. And many are like, and something that baffles me. It's impressive, and probably you got this, that we would get to not only feedback in uh, defects or findings, or even for productive environments, for pre-productive environments. And I'm sure you got this several times. Arriving into a project, what's your performance? That's what you are here for. Like, wait, you don't even know how your product in production is performing?
Yeah.
That's why I brought you for.
You see it way too many times, and as I mentioned earlier, especially when you deal with the digital reality today,
Realm.
we're not in a digital transformation anymore. The transformation happened many years ago, and we are now
Decades.
post-pandemic. So people realize that if they don't have digital assets, they don't exist. Because in the past 2 years, Best Buy and all the other retailers and all your businesses were closed. You can only consume them either through the web or through your mobile. And
Mhm.
if you don't have a good working application on web and on mobile, you don't exist.
It's something that I'm a little bit of a stock market junkie, and so at a point, the people saying, like, this is a energy company, this is a service company, and this is a technology company. Oh, this one is again a technology, and everyone started to become a technology company.
Yeah.
Every company has to embrace the technology and the digital transformation, and
And I will tell you something which I really loved over the past few years from an evolution perspective. You all, whoever is in the US sees day in and day out the Capital One commercial, right? And Capital One, I met some executives at this bank 2 years ago, 3 years ago, just before the pandemic. And they don't call themselves a bank, they're a technology company
yeah.
in the financial vertical, but they're a technology company. And if you look at Best Buy during the pandemic, Best Buy were posting stickers all of the on all of their stores at the very early stages of the pandemic, when
Mhm.
everything was shut down and closed. We are always open 24/7 at bestbuy.com.
They were already preparing.
Yeah. So if you know God forbid there is another
Oh no,
pandemic or
please no,
something.
don't invoke
We had enough. I agree with you.
it.
But this was a nice testament to an organization that transformed from a digital perspective and was ready for these kind of things. And yeah, everyone got hit, but when you have a solid digital asset like a good website which highly performs 24/7 across web, across mobile, across foldable smartphones, all these new technologies that we have and we consume content all day, all night, right? Uh, it really helps you be a leader rather than some actually got out of business because they weren't prepared for this digital reality. So
And something very relevant not only to performance, because usability in terms of performance, yes, it's crucial.
yeah.
But what we had in the pandemic, and that was a test to, and I think everyone in performance and load testing were like, I told you, everyone had to migrate because they were like, no, I don't care about performance, not that many people, because I'm a retailer.
Yeah.
I'm people walk into my place and like, no, no, but there will be one day and probably soon that everyone will log into your site, and even if you don't know it or want it, even my almost 80-year-old dad is like, yeah, how do I order in the Amazon thing? And
Yeah.
even them, they no, I don't use a computer. Yeah, that's what you have in your hand, and you're generating load into the system. And the organizations that didn't have that vision to not only performance test but load, to be prepared to those volumes. And it's not anymore. I like a lot James Pulley example of this store, online store, that the way they were so excited. We're so popular that our site is down and we cannot sell anything. And like, why are you excited about that?
There's nothing to be excited about. And I think that, uh, there are organizations which are even taking it to the extreme. And think about, everyone is talking about, yeah, user experience, digital transformation, but they are talking about the epi path. Okay,
Hmm.
let's talk about the reality. And the reality is not about the epi path. It's all about negative and edge scenarios. Because yeah, well, for the epi path, most of the things would work. It's not like 5 years ago when a new iOS came out. Everything broke, right?
Yeah.
Today, iOS 15, iOS 14 came out. Yeah, there were a few glitches, but at the end of the day, no major disasters. You didn't see all over the news. Yeah, this bank was down for like two days because it wasn't prepared for the new iOS or the new Android version or the new Chrome browser, whatever. Past that thing, I think the challenges that we are now facing, this is just to tell you, if people are not in the digital transformation already, this is the length that they need to go or undergo to get to where they need to. Because today the challenges are even greater. Okay, you have secure screens in iOS, which prevents you as a tester. You cannot, in many cases, you cannot uh, log in.
Into multiple accounts to do your test or to do
Yeah,
generate some
because of
load. And
security, right? So
how many
security.
fingers do I need to?
Yeah.
It's
And so we talk about biometrics, we talk
biometrics.
about
Yeah, yeah.
security, we talk about 5G networks and IoT. Everything is
Ah,
connected.
that's another can of worms that it's coming. And
Yeah.
because you just made me think of the increasing complexity of systems where you may say, okay, in my site I have 100 people logging per hour and just throwing out numbers, but and nothing will happen. I won't get that many new customers. But as you say, okay, this new version of the software and iOS for this, it's suddenly gonna do 10 times more requests to your site. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
This complexity. And we still, and something I have against the virtual user term, which it's useful for people to picture what is happening. But I'm a virtual user in a single site,
Yeah.
me, myself, human being, Leandro, person, señor performer. But I'm generating one ping here, one ping here, one ping here. And who knows where else I have a smart device that may be multiplying with the per person activity in the site.
Exactly.
And many are not even aware of that. They are still thinking like, yeah, my single user and a set of steps that need to go through. It's
And don't even go that far. Look at our daily routine. You go outside. I have two boys. I go to take them to I don't know a basketball training or whatever. So I leave the house, I'm on Wi-Fi, and I'm either on an app that I'm starting to do some transaction on. I then connect to the car. So the car is now taking over my device, and I'm using the Apple Car or the Android Auto. Then I'm on 5G or 4G or whatever the gradient network that I have because I'm driving. And then once I'm driving, I'm sometimes even there are smart cities as we talk 5G. So I'm moving from one tower to the next, and I'm changing network conditions throughout my way. Then I arrive, and then I continue my session. That's the new user journey, and
Hmm.
that's the problem here. Because as a tester today, the user journey that you need to think about. You talked about different pings. Put all these pings in motion because you are now transitioning while you are doing everything. You're doing everything
There's
from one.
Wi-Fi in an airplane.
Yeah,
You can be literally at 100 miles per hour,
yeah.
and you are.
In flight mode, you have Wi-Fi and you have Bluetooth, and you can do many things from a disconnected environment, right? And by the way, this is why Google is actually it's not new. It's just for the past 2 years. But Google launched the progressive web applications just
Mm.
for that sake. Progressive web applications today are simple web applications that can run on mobile without network because they're doing offline caching all the time. They have service workers which are controlling all these notifications and offline caching and local storage on these devices. Okay, if you
And
go,
that's a complete the kind of different
yeah,
mindset of how we were used to performance tests, load tests, or tests,
yeah.
whatever was happening.
And just think about all these tests now in this very complex dynamics that we are living in, because that's in my mind the real challenge today. It's not to do this 100 virtual users in a peak time for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. It's doing that in a very dynamic and constantly changing environment, which uh, the users are transitioning from one environment to the next, from one platform to the next, connecting through the Google Home, to the smart speakers, to the car. It's a
Because
mess.
in that, you just got me thinking on this evolution. On one hand, on the virtual user metric and uh, new technology, mobility, different. Because now we don't have just virtual real users, human beings. When you said 5G and the new car, let's say a Tesla or
Yeah,
a autonomous car,
yeah,
that thing is a new user. It's generating new requests, new inserts,
ex-
pulls, and the AI is rolling there. You have the smart light bulbs. You have your Roomba rolling around. All of them are doing requests, and those become or virtual users, personas, or whatever you want to call them. We have to take into account all that.
and these platforms, smart platforms, the cars and everything, are not running on Windows and are not running on Android. They're running on different software and hardware,
OSs and
which you need to somehow simulate or mimic in a way to really understand the end user experience throughout the journey. So I think that's where we are heading. Today, because things are complexing, new application types. Some of them are single code based, like Flutter and React, progressive web that I mentioned earlier. Some are just mobile, which are in a transition phase from mobile to cars to tablets to foldable smartphones. So yeah, you need to consider this performance and user experience testing, but in a dynamic way.
they keep evolving, they keep changing, and it's interesting because this provides a challenge for the QA community that wants to jump into performance.
Yeah,
I saw some projects that, hey, we're dealing with the Internet of Things. How do we measure performance? How do we? Because when you talk also about web performance, it's something that is not only how my device is doing, or it's an offline platform that it's dropping everything. I can work with it,
yeah,
but it was a freaking JavaScript of 100 megabits that I have almost a complete operating system in my browser
right.
or in my smart device, which if it's not performing and it's not well programmed, it can get hot, it can drain the battery, it can generate some other problems rather than just response times and throughputs that we were used to think of.
Yeah,
And it's something that testers need to kind of, and performance engineers, people, or Because now the titles, that's another one. The performance something title, it's evolving, right?
Yes, yes.
Where do you see those going?
So first, I think in my communities where I am active, and I work with Perfect and I work with Blazemeter. Blazemeter special specialties is around performance and API testing, and I think that I see a consolidation. I see a shift left, not in the automation in the SDLC. I see shift left of performance engineering
Mm-hmm.
moving towards the early development stages, like security, by the way.
Yeah.
There are three main practices that used to be kind of in a silo, which were done as a nice to have
The weird
post.
ones in the corner that
Exactly. Exactly. So I think performance testing, accessibility testing, and security testing, especially in web and mobile, are now shifting and becoming, I would say, equal citizens, like the functional testing of the world for the past decade or two. And I think that it's just going to become even more kind of streamlined process that when you do a completion of a sprint, it already consists of static code analysis, performance testing, accessibility testing, and all the functional aspects as well. So you really cover, when you say 80% test automation coverage, it's automation coverage across all testing types as it should. And that goes back to your point, Leandro, of feedback in the right time, but
oh yeah.
across all different practices. That's the only way you can really catch things early and make your releases more efficient and obviously with higher quality. And by the way, when I was writing my last book, what to write a book, and it as good as I do, it's not just about what you have right now in your mind and what you
And dump
experience.
and
And David, you also need to do a lot of research because things are evolving all the time. I'm talking to you right now at StarEast. In the next couple of days, I think Cypress version 10 is going to be released. When I was writing the book, it was Cypress 9.5 or whatever. And you say, okay, it's just a 1.x release. The technologies around us are evolving day in and day out. And what I
breakneck
love,
speeds.
and
It's a
it's good for the testers. What I think that is transforming, it's not just the digital and complexities and challenges. I think that the testing technologies are evolving over the past 2 or 3 years in a faster cadence than I've seen in the past. I can give you an example: Cypress, Playwright, Puppeteer, Selenium. All of these four frameworks, even though they're just web, they are all coming today baked with smart recorders.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and people would say, "Yeah, is it AI?" Don't mess with AI and machine learning. It's not the AI machine learning. It's the ability for developers and testers to get both coding into their suite as well as recorded code that you can export to JavaScript, TypeScript, and all the other languages. So these tools are evolving so you don't have more excuses. Yeah, I didn't have time. Recorders saves you time. Okay, it's not the recorders of Micro Focus HP 2 decades ago. These recorders, when you're dealing with Playwright and Cypress, these are smart recorders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they control the browsers, they get the DOM tree, they get all the elements, they know exactly how to control each and every action. So you really get deep and more sophisticated scenarios into your test suite, which you have in JavaScript already. So it's a mix of technologies that we are starting to see evolving, and it's just for the good of the test practitioners.
Yeah, and in essence, and that's a common topic that has been mentioned in these interviews that I have been doing. The tools are to help the tester, not to replace them, not to. I mean, you still need the know-how. You still need to. You may have the macro cooker 3000 that will help you to prepare everything, but if you don't know the recipes or that this needs more salt or more butter, it's useless.
We are
You
the designers, the test engineers, the tools on their own. And I, this is my last book. My previous book was about accelerating software quality with AI and machine learning. And when I launched this book late, I think it was 2020, people came to me and say, "Okay, is this AI machine learning going to take our jobs away? Is this evolvement of technologies?" No, it's just you
it's
know
gonna help you.
it's
It's gonna
going to
make it
help you because
better.
everything around us is evolving. If you are not evolving the technologies and the tools that you need to use, these tools are should be used by testers. They're not just lying. Cypress is not developing the tools for Cypress to run tests for you in the void, right? These tools are built for practitioners to take advantage, to be better as testers, to get more coverage, to do more sophisticated scenarios, which we couldn't have done 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Appium couldn't do biometric testing. I know it because Perfecto
You tried
needed
it.
to develop a layer on top of Appium that can mimic a false and positive face recognition or fingerprint. Right? It wasn't supported. Today, it's supported. 2 years ago, people talked about foldables. That's okay. What is foldable smartphone? Samsung was just the first. Every device manufacturer today has a foldable. Huawei and Xiaomi and Samsung, Apple are talking about a foldable iPhone in the next year, I guess. And these foldables comes already with a baked virtual device emulator in the Android Studio, so you can mimic and emulate. So these tools are just an example of evolution of technologies with the
Because
market for the practitioners.
all these new changes, all these new components bring not only, as we were saying, like the 5G with the cars, new personas, but new set of challenges. Because we didn't used to have like, hey, how do I test a device that the screen is becoming smaller when I fold it,
Exactly.
and that I'm just gonna be playing, the button will still fit, and it's all the mess that Android had for a while. Like, how do I deal with all the crazy amount of screen sizes and resolutions? And
Exactly.
now it's in the same device changing, and all of those things become, and as you say, biometrics. It used to be just fingerprint. Now it's facial recognition, or only
In some
with
devices, you have
iPhone.
both. Actually, in some devices, you have both face and
You have both,
fingerprint sensors.
or even, I mean, with I remember the first face recognition, you could put a picture in front, and they were kind of wonky,
Yeah,
but now it's infrared, and they detect that you're alive. They
even with
detect,
masks. Hopefully, we don't need any more masks. But
they just see
today,
your
on
eyes
iPhone, on
and
the new iPhone, you can log
have
in
the mask
with
on
the
it.
face with a mask on. Okay, so and people will say, okay, these technologies are going to take my job away. No, think about if you don't have these capabilities, you need to do it manually. Okay, if you cannot do these biometrics in an automated fashion with Appium, with the other frameworks, it means that you need to do it manually across 20 devices, and it's going to take you ages. Okay, it's the tools are for you as a test automation engineer to do it better, more reliable, and faster. Okay, no one is taking the job away. It's just making you more efficient because the alternative is to be very slow and do it manually with errors and mistakes.
And evolving yourself. I remember when some of the mobile applications started,
Hmm.
they were not so API based. They were uh, almost rocket science to capture a message and be able to mimic it. And that's, I remember Perfecto was the only way, because you needed the devices. There was no other way. You
Yeah.
couldn't um, figure it out. And then it kept evolving. There were other ways, there are means, and for a while, Perfecto was the solution. That was, you need to do functional load or whatever through mobile devices. You're tied up.
Yeah.
And now people keep asking like, hey, how do I load test in mobile devices, and how many Androids do I need? A couple, maybe.
Mhm.
Not Or depend, what are you trying to test? What is your approach? What are you trying to do? No, but what tool? What are you trying to do again? Is it, and what application? Because probably if your application is not API based, oh, then you are needing.
You're touching great points because all comes down to the coverage discussion,
Yeah.
right? And the coverage can be coverage of test scenarios, but also coverage of platforms. How many devices, how many test cases? I say I have 80% automation. What is included in the 80%, and which platforms I'm running the 80%? Because let's say I am able to automate accessibility, security, performance, APIs, everything, and run them uh, in time. So I got one item checked on my list, but am I running that on the right platforms? And what are the right platforms? It's not just that I want to cover Samsungs and Chrome browsers and Safari. I want to cover the things that are mostly used by my end users. So I have my own Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics. I see the user agents that are hitting my backend services. I see which platforms, mobile devices, desktop browsers, and I need to aggregate them including what's coming late in the game, the next betas of Chrome and the next iPhone and the next Android, so I can test the right metrics of platforms with this 80%. Because one without the other is a big miss. You need both test scenarios and the platforms, and they need to match each other's, both from the market usage perspective and your own end user experience, which you see from your Google Analytics and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a constant debate, and it changes all the time.
And the metrics that you mentioned also, by platform, by solution, by device,
Mhm.
and I would add as well by tier of the application
Yep.
solution, because you will use different metrics, different feedbacks. If you are, let's say, at a unit test, because we can get performance from the unit test tier,
Yep.
the service tier, the web tier, the front end, the user experience tier, and all of those will be very different. And you'll be able, I just thought on the user experience tier, which maybe the automation will tell you right away that it took 2 seconds to load,
Hmm.
but you were like, yeah, but I was smart and I put this preload screen that shows you, or from these empty fields like forms that look like they are already there but they are still loading.
Yep.
But the user experience, like, oh, it was super quick, I just saw those little ghosty fields appear right away.
Yeah.
So you need to have also like a holistic approach, right?
Definitely. And I think I can summarize this point in two words. One of them is context, and the second one is, as you mentioned, the application type. Because application type and the complexity of it, together with the context, because context can be the location of where I'm consuming the content, and the context can be the type of users, because we have the ability to do feature flagging and stuff like that. If you are familiar with Apple introduces app clips. App clips is a subset of the application which you can install and run like Android APKs. It's a
Mm-hmm.
subset of an Android application. It can get installed. Different binaries get installed on specific device models and in specific locations. And this means that one user can get one version of the application. Other users in a different country is going to get a different application, which means it's in a different context, because it's even in different country. It has different language, different pop-ups, different security alerts. Okay, so the
Different
testing, different
regulations,
regulations,
different.
different accessibility constraints, different user experience, because it's less 5G coverage over there, or different network constraints. So the application context, the application types are definitely impacting these holistic things that you're talking about. And this is something that test automation managers, when they're planning the scope of the application, the product managers, the developers, all need to sit down. They need to plan all these things and consider all of them. Otherwise, as we know, we end up with excuses.
And it's crazy as well, because as well you have these applications that not only have to port devices, not only have to port locations,
Hmm.
some they even may have to port regulations, legal
Yeah.
stuff. We would see a product, even if it's the same Amazon web page, it may have some products on one side and not on the other, and you have to
For
control
sure.
for that, and that they show up quickly if they are in different warehouses. But as well, you just got me thinking cultural things, even from silly things that I remember, like from Europe or America, Latin America, US. What fingers do you use the most on a mobile device? It's different by cultural. Like
Yeah.
people start counting one, two, or we start with the index, or some with the pinky finger. It's
You need to think about that. You need to consider that as part of your entire test planning, and also, by the way, as part of the usability of your product itself. If
how usable is
Yeah.
it going to be if the text flows backwards in a different country where the writing style, oh, I put the button on the right side and it's over the text, and some of those considerations that testers need to be aware of, not only the I hope we're not scaring people by all the complexities that are around, but it's
No,
it's a super interesting world.
people are we're not talking about that to scare anyone. This is the reality, and people are developing great applications today. If I mentioned earlier, Best Buy, talk about calls. Okay, two large retailers which are fully digital. You mentioned Amazon. Amazon are releasing multiple times a day
Oh,
to production, right? And they you rarely hear about glitches in the native app or the website. It all works like clockwork, which means they figured out a way to do CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, continuous delivery, continuous testing. So technologies enables you to do it. You just need to be aware. We're not scaring anyone. We're just talking about being aware of the details to these complexities, because there aren't that many limitations today in technologies that prevent you to test them correctly.
Hmm.
The awareness and the proper planning, this is something that you need to be aware of, just so you do better testing. That's all.
I would say, instead of scaring people or saying it's a big and spooky and random, chaotic world, but it's a big, proficient, and growing world where we always will need testers. We always will need QA people, and I'll get into another thing I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
But the even if things keep evolving, you will never be out of a job or out of
It's the opposite,
quite the opposite.
actually.
Right now, how many job requirements have you seen? I think like they are growing
It's
exponentially.
people are finding it hard. Hiring managers are struggling today to find, because they need so many additional working hands, more testers. And we have just talked about, the scaring, it's not scaring. It just means that the world is changing and becoming more complex, which means you need to do more testing, more efficient testing, but more testing. And for that, we need
More people.
more people, more practitioners to do proper test automation, proper exploratory testing, API accessibility, performance, user experience, all these things. Because, by the way, it's not that the product manager mandates you to do it. It's what the end users, we as
We
consumers,
need
are
it.
expecting. We're
Yeah.
expecting today, because we know that technology enables things to be much smarter, right? We today, no one works with a map. I expect that when I'm taking my smartphone, I have Google Maps or Apple Maps. Wherever I am stuck in the world, it will take me away from this location to my next destination, whether I'm driving from the car or other place.
Or even
So,
walking around.
yeah, so we are dependent on technology,
Hmm.
and it needs to work. That's it.
And it's something that we got so used to. I was when we came to Orlando earlier, and I was telling my fiance, like, I can barely remember because we got lost and we missed an exit. Like, remember when we had these big maps that we were like, oh no, I hit the wrong exit, and now we're so dependent on those things, even at a point where at times I try to not to use the GPS that much because you become useless without it. You become totally stupid, and it's something that there's always gonna be something new coming up. You just need to evolve what you're doing,
Yeah.
because there are job positions opening everywhere for QA.
And think about it. When I landed in Orlando, the default user experience for me was to order a Lyft or an Uber that will take me to the hotel, to the venue, right? So I have no other. It's not that I have a local phone that I use my smartphone with an application. I was expecting that the application, based on location and context, will know where I am, in which exit or which gate I am, so it
Sisi,
can.
do you even carry around quarters to put in a payphone and
No,
then, like,
no one pays with cash anymore. Almost, okay, especially in the US. I carry cash just in case of an emergency.
emergency, or the
Yeah,
system went down
yeah.
or something like that?
Everything. That's my wallet, right?
Yeah.
My mobile is my wallet, so I'm dependent on that. But if that falls from some reason doesn't work well, I need to revert back. I need to go back in time, if you like. And people aren't used to that. They're not even expecting that. So it goes back to the user experience and the expectations. The user expects today that everything works from their digital channels all the time, with high performance, with high availability. And if I'm using a smartphone which is Android or an iPhone, on the latest version, on the two versions before, it should work.
They
That's
need
the
to be able to
expectation.
coexist and all
Exactly.
those things.
Exactly.
It's it's crazy how we are evolving, how everything is changing, and then the needs. There are always going to be needs. People, be aware, get trained, and join us into the QA side. It's not the dark side; it's very bright.
It's the best one. It's the best. Yeah, I've been
And
doing it for almost 2 decades, and I'm enjoying every
you're
minute.
never bored, right?
No, I,
It's
I always feel that I'm actually lacking knowledge. I'm always learning more and more
oh yeah.
things because everything is challenging me day in and day out. Even if I think I knew things, I find okay, there is something else. Okay,
Oh,
so it's
that new thing,
always
like what are you talking about? You're like, and then you feel like you haven't heard, and everything moves forward. And I mean, you and I'm gonna use this kind of like a segue into this moving or transition. I have the feeling lately that performance and SRE,
hmm
performance engineers, testers, and SRE people, there's something happening there, right? You have you noticed it? Where's your
I've noticed that, and it's part of how DevOps teams are building teams and setting roles and responsibilities. Um, and in my mind, I wouldn't go and mix because when people invented the role of a site reliability engineers and SRE, and they thought about a performance engineer, they thought about two different things.
Mhm.
Okay, and by the way, these are two different things, two different personas, and by the way, they should act in different stages of the software development lifecycle in a proper practice, right? So in my mind, if there are confusions, if there are kind of mixing between these two personas, I think it's wrong. Because by the way, someone asked me this week, it's interesting that you're asking me, someone asked me this week, is there a role of a DevOps manager, or is VP R&D also responsible for the DevOps managers? I said, okay, this is where the confusions begin, right? DevOps is not, a role. DevOps is the entire process of
It's a
so
mindset, it's a culture,
yeah.
it's a because I've seen positions like I need a DevOps engineer. What's that? And I mean, I need a, I don't know, a keto diet developer. Like it's more like mindset. It's something, probably could be the person that is kind of trying to
And
drive towards uh, attaching or following DevOps principles, but
at the end of the day, DevOps practitioners and VP R&Ds and developers are all working on on a product, on
Mhm.
software, on code that needs to be released to production with high quality. So call these the names in my mind doesn't matter. People ask me, okay, is it a business tester or a manual tester or an SDET or a test automation engineer? We should stop dealing with the names. We should talk about the what are they doing, what are their tasks to do. Because when you're starting to put labels under the,
You narrow people, you
yeah,
box them.
you confuse. Actually, you confuse people. You just need to focus on the tasks. The tasks are, yeah, we need to do X, Y, Z. We need to complete these activities in this amount of time in this sprint, and these are the resources that we have available for the tasks. Okay, and these are how we're going to distribute the
Hmm.
tasks. And it doesn't matter if you are an SRE or a DevOps engineer or a performance engineer or an SDET or whatever. It's one team.
We are all together.
It's a squad, right? We call it a
We're
squad,
a
a feature
family.
team, and a feature team delivers, an MVP or a subset of a product which needs to work. That's what needs to matter. That in my mind. But yeah, no.
Yeah, something interesting I've noticed, some people from performance are jumping into SRE, which is something also interesting, right?
It I think it depends also on the maturity of the organizations, the way the organization is built, and because when you are doing performance testing and you're moved to an SRE role, it's not exactly the same day by day activities.
No, 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 no.
So um, I don't know, by the way, if it's an evolution, like a promotion, or it's just a different roles and responsibilities. I think, you would say, okay, is a developer more important than a test automation engineer? Practitioners. One is writing code, the other one is finding bugs or whatever it needs to do. Okay, these are just two jobs. Okay, so I wouldn't say that there is one that is better than the other. And if it evolves or a performance is moving to an SRE, yeah, he's changing practice, he's doing
Mhm.
something else. But I don't think it's something because he did X amount of years of performance engineering and then he's growing into an
No, and there
SRE.
are
No.
some people that never touched performance anything and are already joining directly SRE. So but all paths here take to different places, and there are so many specialties, so many things that I think we could be hours and hours talking about it.
Yeah.
But I want to give some time also to talk about your book.
Okay.
which, by the way, if you allow me, here we have it in camera showing our amigos. Let me get it a little bit closer. I hope it doesn't get too blurry, so that everyone can get an idea of the book, how it looks, how it feels, how it tastes.
It's heavy.
Can you tell us a little bit about it? What was your inspiration, or what are you trying to communicate with it?
Of
Where
course,
to
Sandro.
find it?
Um, I basically many people who know me for the past 2 decades know that I was mostly writing and doing a lot of things about mobile application testing, etc. And I was starting to see so many modern applications. I talked about progressive web, responsive web, Flutter, React Native, and these applications are single code based, sometimes or mostly JavaScript based. Okay, and what I found that the testing frameworks that are built and evolving towards this type of applications, uh, from one hand, are phenomenal, are very good and very advanced. But I found that the awareness out there on how to use these frameworks, what are the challenges, but also what are the advantages of these frameworks, especially for front end developers. Talking about shift left earlier, so I decided to take, at least from my experience, the four most important frameworks that are out there today: Cypress, Selenium. I'm featuring Selenium 4, which is the latest version, Playwright, and Google Puppeteer. And I combined some low code uh, practices in the book as well. But I feature these four frameworks and I explain quite deep. I start, in a low level, and then I go much deeper and
Hmm.
talk about how these frameworks differ from each other, but also how they complement each other to build a solid web application that really works, performs, is accessible, works fine. All testing
All the
types, all
characteristics
the
around that we
characteristics:
mentioned.
visual testing, accessibility testing, code coverage measurement, performance testing, functional testing, component testing, codeless recording testing across these different frameworks. So I aggregated almost every knowledge that I had, and I featured, by the way, some nice experts. Even though I wrote each and every line in this book, there are also some code samples. Okay, as I mentioned in this book, this is a guide. Okay, you should read the book and you will be much knowledgeable about these frameworks and how to use them. It cannot make you the top JavaScript developer. You need to
Yeah.
be. I assume, by the way, that's my beginning assumption of the book, is that you know how to write JavaScript. Okay, but most of these frameworks are JavaScript, are very easy to ramp up with, based on Mocha
Hmm.
JS. But there are other test runners that are being used by these frameworks like Selenium, and etc. But I was amazed when I was writing this book to see how powerful are these frameworks. You can do so many things, with these frameworks that, before I wrote the book, I knew that they're strong. I didn't even imagine that you can do so many things. It actually changed my own perspective on the landscape, and it made me actually feel much better that, test engineers today have the right foundation to do almost any type of test that they want, automate it in many languages. So I cannot see, maybe next year, if people read this book, next year we won't see any excuses. Yeah, I don't have the right tools, especially for web
There are so
testing.
many for
For
everything.
web
Yes, yes.
testing, you can do code coverage, accessibility, visual testing, API testing, functional testing, component testing, network and mocking
Hmm.
activities. No more excuses. Let's just use these tools. It's open source, it's free, you don't need to pay anything. Okay, it's not about the
Wow.
budget, it's all open source. So use these tools, make your applications much stronger, much powerful. I'm featuring in this book one of the speakers, which is actually giving a workshop at StarEast, Philip.
Hmm.
And obviously, I'm featuring, and the foreword was written by Gleb. Gleb is mostly known for Cypress. He's
Uh-huh.
one of the founders, and he's a community expert, and he's the master, in my mind, of Cypress. So I feature a lot of references from good practitioners as well. So you can read the book. You can also use references that I give from people who I really trust, that they are, knowledgeable and know
Hmm.
what they're talking about. So you can be a better test automation engineer in your web application.
You were more like a consolidator of the knowledge of the sources or the creators, and many times who started working on these tools,
Hmm.
and you brought it in the book to the people. So it's awesome. Please don't miss it. I will be taking a read to.
This is your copy.
This is mine. Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a dedicated and autographed book. Thank you very much, amigo, and I'll be there very much definitely taking a look at it. I am looking forward to learn because having a perspective on all the tools or all these new modern tools and what they can do is something that everyone should be aware of and should be getting their capabilities up to the task.
Yeah.
So, with that, where can people find you? I know that there are many places. Where can everyone go and take a look and
So
follow up with you?
so I'm quite active on Twitter on LinkedIn. I have my own continuoustesting.dev blog. I write a lot on medium.com. I have my own page on medium.com as well. I speak at many conferences. I'm If you are listening and viewing us from StarEast, come visit me. I'm at the booth. So feel free to come sit. I think we are booth number 2, Perfecto
Right.
and Blazemeter. So you'll find it by the names. I should be there most of the week. But yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter are the most used channels that they can find me. And if you have any questions, anything about mobile testing, web testing, performance, functional testing, anything about testing, reach out to me. I hope that I can find a solution for you guys.
And I know, as a matter of fact, that if he has not the solution, he will be very good to send you to the right person. He
Yes.
knows who is skillful in what and can give you a solution.
Definitely.
So, in a phrase or two, closing words for the audience that would like to leave to the world from for prosperity.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the market of software testing is just evolving and becoming more and more advanced. Use the tools, use the open source, attend this kind of conferences, events, training sessions, so you can become the next black belt tester for the future, because the future isn't standing still. Everything is evolving, as we talked about earlier. To be better, you need to continuously learn. As I wrote the book, I mentioned earlier, I didn't write the book just from what I have in my head. I did a lot of research and I learned.
Pull
You
pages
always
and
learn, always find new things, but it makes you a better practitioner. So continue learning, continue attending these kind of shows. I'm happy that the world is opening again. We can meet face to face like we're doing right now.
oh
So
yeah.
I invite you to come to more shows like that and consult with experts like you, Leonardo.
Oh no, yeah. Thank you, amigo. It's you are an expert as well. Everyone also take a bite of the amigo Iran.
Thank you.
And well, that's it for now, and I guess for today because the drinks are out there. I see
Yeah.
already people having fun. So, amigo Iran, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for being in person, and looking forward for the next time.
My pleasure. Thank
Uh,
you.
awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. I promise this is the last stream for today. But tomorrow I'll be running around the conference center and showing everything to everyone. So have a good one. Thank you very much for joining and have an awesome rest of the week. We will still be in touch. Take care, and I'll try again to stop the stream. Let's see if it allows me. Is it stopping? Are you still seeing me?